Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Today, Tucker Max joins us for round 2 here at Self-Made Man, and this time we're here to talk about dating and relationships. You know, if I had to pick one area in life that matters most to men, this would be it. Why? Well, it's because our success when it comes to dating or relationships is a brutally honest reflection of ourselves that we cannot escape from. Nothing can shine a light on or expose our strengths, flaws, confidence level, or self-worth more than the thoughts we have about ourselves when we see an attractive woman. And the truth that you'll eventually realize is this: the people around you, including women, see you as you see yourself. So attracting the kind of woman that you want is dependent upon becoming the man you want to be. And as you'll see here today, there are few better guides or mentors in the world that you could have on your side than Tucker Max. What he's going to share with you here on today's show, especially when it comes to what to do and say on a first date towards the end of this episode, is absolutely priceless and quite possibly the most valuable advice that I have ever heard on this particular topic. So if you're a single man or if you know one, please listen to this carefully and please pass it along to those that you know. You will be a better man for it, and the future woman in your life will say thank you. So here is Tucker Max on how to become a man that women want. All right, welcome back, everybody. Mike Dillard here, and today we have a return guest, my very good friend and fellow Austinite, Mr. Tucker Max. Tucker, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. So your first round here with Self-Made Man was talking about the publishing industry and your company, Book in a Box, which got amazing feedback. If you guys haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, make sure that you do that back over at the Self-Made Man blog. But today we are here to talk about one of Tucker's other areas of expertise, maybe his original, which is relationships and dating. And if you know Tucker's background, you know that he's got an extensive history when it comes to this topic in particular. But, you know, Tucker, you've gone through some huge, I don't know, personal transformations over the last 5 years specifically. You're married now, you have a child, and you've really spent the last year or so putting together an amazing podcast and book called Mate, out there for guys when it comes to relationships, and specifically, how do you become the man that a great woman, you know, wants? How do you get an amazing quality woman and have a relationship with one if your confidence is low, if that's something that you want, but, you know, you haven't quite been there yet. So glad to have you on the show and really looking forward to today.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, man.
So tell us a little about, I guess, if you could, let's start with a little bit of context on why you decided to write this book, what the inspiration was for it, and, you know, the corresponding podcast as well.
Right. So it kind of came about as an accident. Like I wrote 4 books that were kind of all the stories of the funny, ridiculous things I did in my 20s, and pretty much that all of us, all guys do, and actually most women too. I just happened to write those stories down, and they got pretty famous and popular, and you know, sold a lot of copies. And so what happened was, almost from the start, I had guys come to me and ask me for advice with women. And at first I was like, what are you doing? Like, it didn't occur to me that everyone wasn't like me and my friends. I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but when you're 27, you think, yeah, okay, I'm great, I'm having fun, I'm amazing, but everyone is doing this too. You know, like, I'm not that great or that different, right? And then you kind of realize as you go through life, okay, I guess I am different. I didn't really even realize it. And so I've had guys asking me for this advice for a long time, and it never connected with me how bad most guys were with women. It should have. When you think about it, like, I've always, not always, but for most of my life done very well with women. And it should have made me understand that if I'm doing really well with women, it must mean that all these other guys are doing terrible, because there's nothing that special about me. It reminds me of the story, the 2 guys walking in the jungle and a tiger starts chasing them. And one guy takes off running and the other guy stops and put on his tennis shoes. And the guy running is like, what are you doing? Even with tennis shoes, you can't outrun a tiger. And the guy with shoes says, I don't have to outrun the tiger, man. I just have to outrun you. And I feel like that's actually kind of how it is with dating, is like I've done well because even though there's so many other amazing guys out there, they don't know how to interact with women or how to present themselves in a way that women are going to find attractive, even though they're great guys and that most women would like them. And so I met Dr. Miller one time. This all came to a head. I met this guy, Jeffrey Miller. He's a famous evolutionary psychologist. And he told me about how all of his young male cousins would read my books as dating advice. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my books are the opposite of dating advice. They're like, I get drunk and throw up on myself. Those are my books. And he's like, yeah, but like, there's nothing else out there that's honest and teaches guys how to do this. And I didn't believe him. And then like I kind of looked into it and I realized he's right. Everything else out there is either manipulative trash, like pickup artist nonsense, or it's like ridiculous, moralizing, awful stuff, either like Christian stuff or crazy hardcore feminist stuff. Like no one talks to men in a direct sort of honest way that helps them get better in real life. And so he and I decided to collaborate. We started talking, what would this book look like? And then it was like, we were like, well, we got to write this. Every guy on earth needed this book, at least when they were young, if not still now. And so that's sort of how the book came about. It's called Mate, Become the Man Women Want. And it basically explains the entire dating landscape for men, all the way from what women want, what women are like and how they see the world, which is very different than men, what women want, how to develop it in yourself and show it to them, and then how to go find and talk to and deal with women in an effective way.
Awesome. I think this is such a critical piece of education that's missing from guys, which is, man, the source of so much crap that we see today, as men get into their 20s and 30s and just a lack of confidence and frustration and anger and hatred and all of that other stuff. It in a very large part stems from this area of frustration in their lives. And I really wish that books like this were handed out to guys in high school or college as required reading in a class, because I think it would absolutely transform their lives. And I had to go through a period of this in my mid-20s. I had sucked with girls. I had zero self-confidence whatsoever, and that went all the way through until I was about 24, 25 years old, and I was like, okay, I need to get this figured out. And I spent a year studying, primarily at that time, all of Eben Pagan stuff.
Right.
Which, from similar to what you have here, is based out of evolutionary psychology. And so I've listened to your podcast on this topic as well. It's absolutely fantastic. And my favorite part is, Tucker, you're not one to hold back,
No.
or sugarcoat things. You just get very much to the point. And so if you could walk us through some of, the highlights of the book, if you will, or let's do it.
Right. So here's what I'm going to do. The book is, 350, 400 pages. There's a lot of detail, and it's written sort of as a comprehensive, almost a Bible for guys. And most guys have different problems. So the best thing to do, obviously, is pick up the book and read it. But what I'm going to do to give sort of the most value to your listeners is I'm going to explain like the 3 or 4 or 5 things that almost all guys do to cripple themselves with women, and that you could stop or change really easily today.
Awesome.
And see results today, right? So, because like most of the stuff is like, oh, you need to go get in shape. And a dude's like, oh, that's going to take me 6 months or whatever, and it's like, being in shape helps, but there's probably a lot of things you can do before then, right? So the first big thing I think that most guys don't understand is that they don't understand that women look at the world in a totally different way than men. Like what men do naturally, and I used to do this too, is assume you implicitly assume a woman is just a guy with a vagina and tits. And that's 100% untrue. But understanding how women think is a very big sort of task, but there's actually one big thing you need to understand and remember and really sort of internalize, is that a woman's biggest fear is that an unknown man is going to rape or kill or murder her, like on a deep psychological level. That is what women fear most. Men don't have this fear. We are much bigger than women. Like, we walk into a room where we don't know people, we're not physically afraid of our safety. Men's deepest fear, actually, is usually sexual humiliation from a woman, right? On a deep unconscious level. And so, like, we're definitely afraid of a woman making fun of us or whatever, or rejecting us, or of course, but we're not afraid she's going to kill us, right? It's sort of like the really famous Louis C.K. bit where he goes on about how women still like men, even though we're literally the biggest threat to their safety. Like, he says it in a really funny way, but it's true. And the reason this matters is because so many guys, when they interact with women and approach women in any situation, they do it in a way that triggers a lot of safety sort of concerns with women. And I'm talking about normal guys, good guys. The vast majority of guys are totally safe and fantastic guys, obviously never going to hurt women. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of guys who are actually a threat, right? Who are bad people, whatever. But women don't know who is and isn't. So their default state needs to be men are dangerous and I need to be careful. Now, let me give you some examples. So here's a great sort of example we use in the book to help guys understand this, right? Pretend you're gay for a second and pretend that you go to a gay bar and the bar is full of NFL linebackers, right? So they're 6'4", they're 260 pounds, they're all ripped, they're all twice as big as you are. They can pull your arms off if they really want to. Now, some of them are really funny and cool. Some of them are kind of weird and creepy. Some of them are aggressive. Some are quiet. But basically, you are the smallest person there, and they could, in theory, do anything they want to you, right? So now you may be attracted to some of them, but there's still that sort of physical difference. And if you can picture that in your head, that's basically what a bar is like for a woman.
Got it.
Right? And not only that, but like every dude there wants to sleep with you in some way, shape, or form, and it's kind of looking at you like a piece of meat, right? So if you understand that, it totally changes how you interact with women. So instead of being like, I'll give you a great example. This is not just at a bar, any place at all. If you are looking at a woman, right? Like, say you look at her across the room, some really cute girl. If she looks over at you and you turn your eyes away from her super quick, that codes in mammalian brains as predator. That's why girls, there's a reason that shifty eyes is like a term in English, because that codes as creepy and a threat.
Okay.
Right? So if you're staring at a woman and she looks at you, just smile like, hey, what's up? And you don't have to go over and talk to her. You don't have to do anything. But if you can interact with her and understand, hey, I'm not a threat, I'm not anything like that, then she's gonna feel much safer around you. And so much, this goes to sex too. Like, so much of interacting with a woman is her testing you in an unconscious way to make sure this guy's not going to hurt me. I can feel safe around him. I can trust him, right? And so if you understand that as a guy, you understand, okay, once she gets to know me and realizes I am a good dude and I am safe, then we're fine. But until then, this is a concern of hers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? All right, so that's the first thing, I think. And we kind of explain it. If you're not able to, I'm sure, Mike, you get this. But if you're a younger guy and you're not wrapping your head around this, we have a huge chapter in the book that really explains what this is about. The second thing that guys do wrong, and this is like a totally different sort of angle on dating, is that they don't understand what a mating market is. So a mating market is essentially, let's take the smallest example. So let's picture a room, any room at all, college classroom, bar, CrossFit gym, doesn't matter. Imagine there are 10 people. 3 are men, 7 are women. What are your odds as a guy? Very good, obviously, right? Because there's more than 2 women for every guy. All right? Now imagine reverse. 7 women, 3 guys. What are your odds as a guy? Very bad, because there's more than 2 guys for every woman, right? That's a small mating market. But the way almost everything that humans do in terms of dating is governed by the mating markets we exist in. And a mating market is the room you're in. It is the neighborhood you live in, the city you live in, the school you go to. Essentially, where do you spend your time and what is the ratio of men to women? And believe it or not, there's been a ton of data in this field in the last 5 to 10 years, a ton of research, and it hasn't really been popularized well. But basically what the research has shown is that the single strongest factor for success in mating for men or women is the local sex ratio, the mating market, essentially. How many women versus how many men? So what does this mean for you as a guy? I think it's a very, very clear thing you need to understand. As a man, you need to spend as much time as possible in places and activities and groups where there are at least an even ratio of men to women, if not a greater ratio of women to men.
So
right?
I'm thinking instantly here in Austin, best place I can possibly think of is a yoga class.
Yoga class is amazing. Absolutely. I would also look at CrossFit, which tends to be, depending on where you go, can be heavily female. I would also, and it depends on what kind of woman you like. CrossFit women tend to be different than yoga women, obviously. I would also look at volunteerism. Like I tell every guy who moves to Austin, and in most cities this is true, is the best place. Bars are actually terrible places to meet women because of the first lesson I told you is that women are afraid for their safety and women fear physical power of men. Well, think about what a bar does. It's a dark place where women are surrounded by strange men and those men have been drinking, right? and then the think about this though. The job of the man is to walk up to a strange woman she doesn't know and try and get her to leave that bar with him alone. So you're exposing men and women to their worst fears. A woman has to be around a bunch of strange drunk guys she doesn't know. A man has to put himself open to sexual humiliation on a repeated basis. Picking up women at a bar is the hardest way to be successful with women, and it is the least functional for most guys. I happen to be good at it, but it took a lot of work, and I'm also very outgoing and charismatic, and I'm very verbally gifted and blah, 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 right? I have this set of skills that are necessary to do that. Most guys don't. And most guys think of themselves as like failures with women because they can't go to bars and pick up women. It's actually the worst possible place to meet for men and women, right?
So, let's move over to the scenario where, okay, we've got those two pieces nailed down. And let's say that a guy's going to decide to start frequenting and taking yoga classes or going to a CrossFit class, or wherever where it's a much more suitable environment for success.
Right.
What's the biggest mistake that a guy makes when he walks into one of those venues?
That's an excellent question. So let me add on another sort of idea. Those two are great, but the only problem with CrossFit and yoga is that guys think, oh man, I got to talk to this girl at the end of the yoga class or whatever, right?
Right.
So I would actually add a whole nother level of places that guys should go. And any place that requires where you have sort of a group goal, a mission, and you have to interact with each other in accomplishing that mission is the best possible place. So the first place I tell guys, young single guys, when they come to Austin, is go to Austin Pets Alive and volunteer. It's a no-kill shelter, but any dog shelter will work, right? And there's like 10 in Austin. And I'm like, because those places are 80 to 90% volunteers, and 80 to 90% of the volunteers are women. So when you show up, assuming you care about dogs, don't do it if you don't care about dogs. Any volunteerism can work because almost all volunteer groups and all altruistic charity groups almost all of them are at least 60% women. I can think of hardly any examples that are majority men. So what you're doing is you are showing women that you are safe to talk to. You have a goal or a mission similar to them. You care about something besides yourself. And you now have a reason to both interact with these women and talk to them, right? So now you have put yourself in a social group that they care about that will enable you to get to know them in a totally pressure-free and stress-free way. So, for example, when I moved to Austin, I didn't really volunteer at the shelter because I had a bunch of money. I did the next best thing. I donated a bunch of money to the shelter and set up like a bunch of dog behavioral programs and endowed them in my name. So it was actually even better for me because I would go and just be like the dude who paid for everything, right?
Right.
But the point is, I had a reason to be there, and the women had a reason to talk to me, and we had a reason to interact. And so that let them get to know me in a way that was stress-free and pressure-free. I could show off all the best attributes of myself. I care about dogs. I'm a nice guy. I'm smart. I'm giving. I'm funny. All those sorts of things, right? And then they can be like, wow, I really like this guy. And then from there, it's really easy to transition into, hey, let's get a drink. Let's go to dinner, Netflix and chill, whatever you want, whatever you want to do from there. Do you understand though that like if you create a social life that involves groups of people doing things that you enjoy and having common goals, then all of a sudden you're meeting women and interacting with them and displaying the best traits of yourself. It's the opposite of bars, and it works 10 times better.
Agreed.
And this really is the opposite of the way that like most, and not to pick on the pickup artists, but like most the pickup artists and everyone related to them look at dating as a predatory sort of manipulative activity. We look at it in the total opposite. Like, what do you like doing? Go do those activities in groups with women. Then you can meet those women and show what's good about you and evaluate them in a low pressure, low stress situation, and then move on from there, like to any sort of mating activity you want, right? That's really important in mating markets. As a guy, you need to think about, where am I spending my time? Like, you can be the best, most attractive, most baller guy on earth. But if you spend all your time at home playing video games, at Gold's Gym, lifting by yourself, and drinking with your friends at a sports bar where there are no girls except the waitresses, how are you going to meet women? It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's just no way to do it, right?
Agreed. Yep.
All right, so the next thing I think we should talk about is online dating. Because a lot of guys don't understand. Online dating is probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to men. And I think men don't quite recognize it or understand it because they don't know how to interact on online dating. We have a huge sort of guide and explanation about how to sort of evaluate online dating, how to set up your profile in the book. But let's go over this a little bit, because men look at online dating in a way that I think is toxic and flawed and holds them back. All right. So first off, what's amazing about online dating is almost no matter where you are in the world, if you use it correctly, you're going to now have access to at least meet hundreds, if not thousands of women that would have taken an immense amount of effort, if not was impossible before. So you now have access to all these people, okay? Here's what you have to understand though. When people evaluate you totally differently in online dating than they do in person. In person, I can look at, your facial expressions, your posture, your movements. I can hear the tone of your voice. There's just an endless amount of information that sends me signals about who you are. In online dating, there's very little information. And so what will happen is that women will closely examine the information they have, and then they will amplify that signal. So if it's even a slightly bad signal, they'll amplify it a lot and assume the worst, even if they would like you in person, right?
Okay.
So what we recommend guys do, first off, you must focus on your picture. Like, it's funny, so many guys, they'll stare at other girls' pictures forever, and they'll like kind of pick a girl's picture apart on like Tinder, but then they don't think that women do the same thing to them. But they do, guys. They look at your pictures just as hard. In fact, they look at like what's in the background, what is he doing? Like if you have a picture of yourself with a bunch of, like Mike, your pictures would probably be with race cars on your ranch, maybe with your son, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a woman is going to see those and think things about you, and those are probably good things. You care about cars, you care about outdoors, you care about your kid, all those sorts of things are going to tell a story, right? So you need to make sure the story that your pictures tell about you is the one you want to project. Generally speaking, you want to have pictures where you look sort of either you're having fun, you're doing things that are fun and interesting, you don't have to be smiling like all toothy in every picture, but you should generally look at least, if not happy, then at least content, at least not sad or depressed, right? Unless you want to date like an emo girl, then you can put your emo pictures, right?
Well, so that's what I've been dying to throw in here, because this just goes into me marketing 101, which is you have to consciously
know your customer, yeah.
You have to consciously put up pictures that will attract the kind of woman that you want to attract.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So if you put up, pictures of you in the Ferrari and the yacht, you're going to attract a bunch of gold diggers.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, that's why so many guys think, oh, well, if I get money, women will just come. They will come, and they're called gold diggers, and they'll take your money, and they're terrible people. Right?
No, that's why this is super important. There's so much more that goes into this process than you realize, because again, you've got one channel of communication here, which is visual only. You can't talk to them. There's none of these other pieces. So there's one way to tell a story, and you better tell the story that you want to tell in order to attract the type of person you want to attract. Exactly.
So you can approach this from a marketing mindset. If you're a good marketer, which obviously you are, but your audience, I think you have a lot of those people in your audience. You could approach this and think, okay, what customer am I trying to attract, and what am I displaying that will attract that customer, right? At least to sort out your pictures. So, for example, when I was single, I had pictures of me and my dog. I had pictures of us sort of out doing things. I had pictures with me and my friends at bars. I had basically pictures that told the story that this is a guy that he's a nice, sweet guy. He loves his dog. He drinks. He's gonna be fun to party with, and I'm gonna have a good time with him. But maybe not like a serious dating guy, which was exactly what I was looking for most of my life. Mm-hmm. It worked really, really well, right? So that was the story I told, and attract those women. Here's the next step. In any sort of online dating thing, there does come a time where you're gonna have to write to them. Like actual, like interactions beyond just the picture. Like she swipes right, you swipe right, or whatever on Hinge, same thing. Then the next step is, what do you do now? For some reason, I don't know why guys think this. It kind of drives me crazy. A lot of guys think they've got to then prove themselves to the girl, right? They're gonna I gotta say something funny, or I gotta have a good line, or whatever. That's the worst approach to take. What you want to do, online dating is essentially just a way to meet a girl in person. There's nothing to win in online dating. Getting the most right swipes doesn't get you anything if you don't actually meet any of these women in person, and then have relationships, whether they're short or long term, whatever you two want, right? So what we tell guys to do, and what we've seen immense success with, is essentially the first interaction should be, let's set up a date, right? And we tell guys not to make it as like, okay, we're going to go to dinner, it'll be a big thing. No. You don't ever want to put any sort of pressure or sort of set up some expensive, complicated thing. You don't know if you're going to like her. She doesn't know if she's going to like you. What you both know is that you find each other attractive, and that's about it, right? So what you want to set up is something with a bounded time frame in public that gives her an out. This all gets back to safety, right? So
coffee.
Exactly. Coffee is perfect. Lunch can be good. Happy hour can be good. And anything like that, where there's a bounded time frame in public doing something that you both like, and that's just casual and easy, right? So from there, the way we usually tell guys to do this is, instead of asking, hey, do you want to get together? The problem with that is that's passive, and it doesn't actually it's not an action. It doesn't give her an action to take. Because what you're doing then is you're telling the woman she has to be in charge, which 98% of the time she's going to find unattractive, right?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that is if you're asking for her permission or whatever it may be, you've already established yourself as the beta in the relationship.
Exactly. Right? So what we tell guys to do is to give her a choice, right? Say, hey, how about, coffee or Thai? Something like that, right? Or ice cream or tea, whatever. Like, the point is, you're not asking her if you want to go out. You are telling her that you want to go out with her, and you are giving her two discrete options to choose from. Obviously, she can say, I don't want to go out with you at all, which, whatever. Some girls use Tinder as a narcissistic hit to their ego. That's not a judgment of you. Just ignore it. Okay, fine. She doesn't want to go out at all. That's fine. No big deal. A huge amount of women will want to go out because they swipe right on you, right? And so giving them an option, well, then they can say, oh yeah, I like coffee, or no, I hate Thai, but how about French, or whatever, right? So you've immediately set up the conversation as you framed it as we're gonna pick the place that we meet, the place and terms under which we meet, not are we even gonna meet, right? And so from there, it's very simple. Then you meet her, and here's the thing that I think guys screw up so much there's two major things when they meet women. The first thing, and this can apply to sort of mini markets, anything we've talked about. The first thing that guys don't do is they don't think at all about what do I look like to the woman? How am I coming off to her? Right? So it gets back to the very first point I made, understanding women. If you show up in a ratty trucker hat turned backwards and like a sleeveless shirt that says, free ride, ask grass or cash, nobody rides for free, and flip flops, then there's a certain type of woman who will probably like that, but most women won't, right? You're telling a story about yourself, okay? And she's going to judge you based on those clothes and what that says about you. And if you're in Panama City spring break, she might judge you really well. But if you're in downtown Austin, meeting a professional woman for lunch, she's going to be like, who is this clown? So you need to understand what you wear, and everything about your appearance tells the woman a story about you. And I'm not saying you need to dress a certain way. That's actually not true. But you should think, how do I want to come off the women, right? Do I want to come off professional, laid back, fun, whatever? What story do I want to tell? And what women will this story attract? If you are a young professional and you want to have a serious relationship with other young professional women, there's a certain way you need to dress and act to appeal to them. If you just want to sleep with a bunch of girls and you want to find girls just looking to hook up, it's a very different way to dress and act, right? So make sure when you show up to this sort of meeting that you know the signals you're sending off and what they say. Because that you are going to send off signals and they will say things. If you don't know, they probably won't be good ones.
I think Tucker, the single most important thing that if I could summarize, one trait when it comes to successfully starting a relationship with, the women that you would prefer to have one with, it would just be confidence, right? Your level of confidence. So let's say you're meeting, your date up for the very first time. You walk into Starbucks, you see her there. I think the unspoken forms of communication as far as your body language goes, how you hold yourself, your shoulders, how you walk, it really decides the outcome of the date before you even sit down in the chair.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about that.
Well, okay. So I didn't dive too deep into this. I wasn't sure how into the sausage gets made you wanted to discuss, but there's a whole field called social psychology that really tracks and measures and tries to figure out how humans assess other humans. And so when anyone walks into a room, like let's say I'm meeting a woman at Starbucks for coffee. I walk in the door. Let's say I tell her I'm going to wear a gray sweatshirt, so she knows it's me or something, a red hat, whatever. So immediately, the first thing she assesses is actually size, right? That is a deep mammalian trait. Why do you evaluate size first? Because size is a proxy for threat. And all humans do this, not just women. Threat assessment is the first thing all mammals do because we basically evolved as a hunted prey. We were both hunter and huntee. And so that's just part of our biology. Next thing is shape. Is it a dog? Is it a human? Obviously, these happen very quick. Then you kind of go down from the more unconscious to conscious. Body posture, body language, facial expression, those sorts of things. She's reading confidence, she's reading health, she's reading social status, she's reading all of those things off of the way you move and the expressions you make on your face. Are you happy? Are you sad? Essentially what she's reading is friend or foe. These are the two main things that all people sort of read off other people is, are they strong or weak, right? Are they effective or ineffective, powerful or unpowerful? That's first. And then second is warmth. What do they think of me? Do they like me? Am I in their tribe or not? Right? That's what charisma is the ability to project both warmth and power. And very, very few people can do that. Most people project one or the other, or try to, at least. But like someone like Bill Clinton can do both. And he can do both extremely well, which is why he led the free world for 8 years.
I think a big part of having that level of confidence and having that level of ease, if you will, comes down to not being emotionally attached to the outcome.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's the next step, is actually interacting with her.
Okay, cool. So my rule of thumb that I learned a long time ago, which I found incredibly effective, is it serves you really well to a point, and then you have to disregard it. But in the very beginning, it works very well, which is to always remember he or she who cares least wins. And so if you care the least about the outcome, you can go in expecting to have a great time and a great interaction. But if you're not emotionally attached to the outcome, and this comes back from my days in network marketing when it was, recruiting distributors.
Right.
And if you care about the outcome, they're going to smell that and they're going to run away because it comes across as neediness. And
desperation. In dating, it's desperation. And there's nothing less attractive in a man than desperation.
Right. And so that was always the attitude I would try to go into that situation, which is, hey, if I am really detached from this outcome and I'm just here to genuinely have a good time no matter what happens, then that really sets you up for success, which is the irony of the matter.
Right, exactly. So we could obviously get into a deep discussion about Buddhism and attachment. Here's a couple, it's a great point. This is what happens next. So I'm going to go through exactly how we tell both how to emotionally and mentally prepare to set yourself up for success, and then how to have a conversation. Because those are the two next things. So let's say you're dressed appropriately for the venue and the woman, right? And you send off the right signals. You walk in, you're fine. She's like, okay, at this point, no woman is falling for you unless you're one of those 0.01% Greek goddess beautiful guys that I am not, and very few guys are. She's still judging you. She's still trying to evaluate you, right? All right. So here's a mental approach. Like what you said, I don't recommend he who cares the least wins, because what happens is young guys, I know what you're talking about, but most young guys will take that as indifference, and they'll project indifference, and that doesn't come off well to women either. So what I tell guys to do is whenever they're dealing with a woman, to not think about sex at all, right? Because here's the thing, every conversation between a single man and a single woman, sex is the subtext, always. But if you just don't care about it, like you just say, you know what, it's not even like I don't care if we get laid. Don't even think about it as a thing. Sex just doesn't matter or exist in this conversation, and approach every conversation with two goals. What can I learn about this person that's interesting? One. And two, how can I have fun in this conversation? And that's it. If you approach those two things only, every conversation with women about, I'm going to learn a little bit about her that's fun and interesting, and I'm going to have fun in the conversation, then you have now freed yourself up to not worry about the result. So it gets the same result you're talking about without you coming off as indifferent.
No, that's great. I think that's the recipe for a home run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the way I switch it is, if you're with your group of friends going out to bars to pick up women, then your goal should be to meet as many people as possible and to have as much fun as possible. It's only a little different if you're going to meet one woman, then it's I want to learn about her and see what's interesting about her, right?
I mean, that's just brilliant, Tucker, because one, you're having the other person talk about themselves to a point, which everybody, loves to do or gets satisfaction from at some level. You're showing interest in her, and you're doing everything that every other guy is not doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that flows directly into conversation. So we have a long chapter about conversation and kind of break it down and explain sort of how it works. But there's two things in conversation that most guys screw up. The first thing is they think small talk doesn't matter. I cannot tell you how wrong that is. Small talk is massively important, because here's why guys think it doesn't matter and they think it's stupid. Because they take small talk as just the discussion they think small talk is just happening at the level of the words, right? So, oh, pretty crappy weather today. Yeah, I know it's been raining for 2 weeks. And guys are like, I don't care about the weather. Why are we talking about rain? I just want to have sex. And I'm like, shut up, dude. That's the point. Small talk is essentially a way for women, for any people at all. It's totally true in business as well. But in a dating context, it's a way for people to learn about you. Specifically to learn, do you have the social and emotional intelligence necessary to find a way to connect with me on at least the vaguest sort of terms, right? So small talk is about measuring your social intelligence and emotional intelligence. Does he know how to have a sort of a normal, socially acceptable conversation? One. And two, can they connect with me? That's actually what almost all small talk boils down to: who do we know in common, or what do we have in common? Because again, two things: women want to feel safe, right? And if you know someone in common or have something in common, they feel safe. And two, they want to know that you have friends and that you have a social life and you have things going on in your life. A lone wolf male is not attractive. A man who has a large set of friends and a community and things around him, resources, etc., is far, far more attractive, right? That's what small talk is about. And guys try to dismiss it, and they miss. It's a great opportunity to show women that you are socially intelligent and you are emotionally connected, and those are hugely important, right? Now, if you're bad at conversation, let's say you're good at small talk, but you don't know what to talk about, there's a great trick. I call it the detective game, right? And we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but it's about finding out what's interesting about her. But how do you do that? What you do is what I do, and I do this with everybody in business. It's like it's such my default conversation style. I don't even realize I do it anymore. I basically just ask people questions until I find something that's interesting about them. And then if it's something I know nothing about, then I really dive in and try and get them to explain it to me because I want to learn it. If it's something that I have some relationship to, then we talk about it. So when I first met Josh Pizzoni, you just had on your podcast, I didn't know anything about the supplement business, and so I got Josh to tell me all this stuff about the supplement business because I was interested in it. It was super interesting. It was really amazing, right? And then of course it turns out we knew a bunch of people in common. So we talked about all the people we have in common, etc. Now, I'm not trying to sleep with Josh, obviously, but attraction and connection work very similar in business and in dating. And that conversation style, if you ask people, you play the detective game, find out what's interesting about them and what do we have in common are the two things you're looking for. And if you can do that, then you can have essentially an unlimited number of or unlimited length of conversation that is going to be interesting to you as well as her for as long as you want with almost anybody.
One of the other rules of thumb that I've always remembered or that I adopted, 10 years ago was that people see you as you see yourself. And
Yes.
So this is another bridge between business and relationships that are really identical. And I came across it in the business world, but it applies to relationships. And so one of the big insecurities that, let's just say, I had when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur, and I wasn't making any money, I wasn't getting any results, I didn't have a lot of confidence, and yet here I am trying to sell a business opportunity or pitch a product to men and women who are older than I am, who had more money than I am, and more success, and not feeling very confident in my ability to do that. I remember living in Dallas, and it's like if you didn't drive at least a BMW or a Lexus in your 20s, then you had no chance at ever getting a date.
Yep.
And so, how do you bridge that gap? And what I finally realized and what stuck with me is that quote is people see you as you see yourself. And so if you see yourself in a different way and you change that, that's how other people are going to see you the same way. And the exact same thing applies, from a dating perspective.
Yes, we talk a lot about confidence in the book. Confidence is a tough thing for a lot of guys. The approach we take in the book is a lot of people say fake it till you make it. I think that's actually bad advice. Here's why. Because if you don't actually have the things you're faking, then it doesn't really work, and people are gonna see you as a manipulator and deceptive, right? Fake it till you make it only works with guys who are actually have great attributes and great skills, but they don't believe it themselves. So people with like imposter syndrome, then fake it till you make it helps them readjust their internal perception to actually line up with the way the world sees them. You know? So if you're one of those guys who's actually a really great guy, but you just don't believe it and don't see it, then fake it till you make it is really, really great advice. But for other guys, and I think most guys don't fall into that category, most guys don't have confidence because on a deep level, they don't actually have a lot to be confident about. And so we talk about this in the book in really in depth. Confidence comes from one place and one place only, and that's demonstrated. True confidence comes from demonstrated performance, you know? And so, like, if you have not accomplished anything that you're proud of, right? And if you haven't demonstrated that, it's almost psychologically impossible in a healthy human mind to be confident.
Man, this is the parallels between the business side are unbelievable, because the way that I finally got confidence in my business, Tucker, is that I started studying courses on copywriting and Google AdWords, and I started to acquire skill sets, and I apply those skill sets, from my bedroom after waiting tables, and I would start to get results, and then holy shit, the confidence showed up.
Bingo. Yeah. You did it. You learned it, then you tried it. You were bad. You kept going in an iterative cycle, getting better and better and better and better. And then you saw results, and then you believed in yourself because you saw results.
Yep.
Exactly. That's where confidence comes from. And so I think part of the point you were making is that a lot of guys think you have to be confident with women to be good with women. But if you're not good with women, you can't be confident with women, and they get stuck in that cycle, right?
Right.
The way to break out of that cycle, there's only two ways. And if one is fake it till you make it, which can work, but for a lot of guys, it really doesn't. It's really bad advice. You can try fake it till you make it. And if it doesn't work, then don't feel bad about yourself.
Well, let me throw this out there to help give that some context, because I relate to that in some ways and I relate to it in other. And so what I did when I was first starting out, and I was, dead broke, living in an empty apartment, that was not congruent with how I felt about myself on the inside. And so what I would do is I would go out and I would buy either a pair of jeans or a pair of shoes that I could totally not afford, $200 or $300 for a pair of jeans or a pair of shoes. But that I knew that that's what I was meant to be, what I was meant to be wearing, and that was more congruent with how I felt about myself on the inside, even if I didn't necessarily have the money to afford that. And so I would do little things like that would help me bridge the gap between the two and show a little bit of progress towards the goal that I ultimately wanted to obtain.
Yes, and so that can absolutely work, especially if you see sort of like high status goods and materials as sort of correlating to an identity. Absolutely can work. That wouldn't have worked at all with me, because I don't see it that way. I see it sort of a different way. So that's a little bit like, that's not really fake it till you make it. That's more like picture yourself where you want to be, which is, I think a much more productive way to sort of deal with emotions. But here's the other way to get out of that cycle. Like, I'm not confident with women, and I can't be confident until I'm good, and because I'm not good, I can't be confident. Is that you want to be confident at meet women in a context where you're doing something you're confident at, right? So that's why I get back to volunteering. Even if you have no skills and you suck at everything, and like I don't know if you listen to Mating Grounds podcast, the guy that we helping Joe, he in that sort of episode, or those series of episodes, he does suck at almost everything. He really has almost no skills, right? But even if you suck at everything, you can always be good at helping other people. Always. You can always find people who need help, no matter how poor you are or how unskilled you are, and you can help them. And even if you can't help people, you can help dogs and cats, right? And so if you go do that, you're displaying, first off, a lot of good traits about yourself to the women you work with. Also, you're going to develop confidence. You're going to develop, and not just confidence in skills, you're going to develop confidence in yourself, right? You're going to develop a view of yourself that's very positive, because you're actually doing good things for other people or for the world, right? And so if you start there, if you have nowhere else to start by helping other people, And then ideally do it in a context where there are other women around. And because those women are going to value that. Like a woman who goes and volunteers at a dog shelter likes dogs, and she likes guys that like dogs. And if you like dogs and you show that by being a compassionate, empathetic dude and really helping and working hard, then she's going to be like, you know what? At least some of the women will say, you know what? He may not have a lot going on now, but this guy has a lot of the things I care about in men. He's kind, he's giving, he's hardworking, and I'll tell you, I know a lot of guys who basically started their journey to greatness by first finding a woman who believed in them, right? And a way you can do that is by showing those good traits about yourself and dating women based off of those. You can develop those. Anyone can develop those traits right now today, regardless of what you have going for you. And you can meet women that way that are good women.
That is unbelievably valuable and insightful advice, man. That's just awesome. Couldn't agree with you more. So unfortunately, this flew by, and we're about to hit our deadline here. Where can guys go to plug into the podcast to get the book?
The podcast is on iTunes. It's called Mating Grounds. And then the book is just called Mate. It's on Amazon or any bookstore. Awesome,
brother. And a website in particular?
It's called thematinggrounds.com.
Okay, cool. Man, this was super interesting. I'm a little bummed you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this before at length, and it feels like we've been going for about 20 minutes. I can't believe an hour has flown by already.
Yeah, I know.
But guys, this is super important stuff for you to take care of. It's something that you think about every single day, especially if you're single. And I think Tucker has provided some of the most valuable advice that I've ever heard when it comes to this topic. It is really centered around the right things, the right emotions, the right thoughts, and coming from the right place. So Tucker, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time once again and your contribution to Self-Made Man. And guys, go get the book, go check out the podcast, and this has been awesome.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week.